Just Robin put this in my hand, so I feel like I had to, make use of it. So good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, January 22nd, the year 2024 already. So this is the Yolo County Climate Action Commission. I am calling this meeting to order. It is, let me check, 4 p.m. and 7 minutes. So as a reminder, we're meeting in person in the community chambers in Yolo County in Woodland. And the meeting is also being streamlined. I think we're ready for the roll call. And I will public comments later, yeah.
Commissioner Reed is absent. Commissioner Daddle?
Here.
Commissioner Ullman?
Here.
Commissioner Kim?
Here.
Commissioner Serena?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Chair Mondo?
Here.
Commissioner Austin and Commissioner Alvarez are both absent today. Commissioner Bennett is running late. And Commissioner Britton.
Here.
Do we have our ex officio members?
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm out of practice. 1 month off, folks. Ex officio member Sarah Morgan.
Present.
Ex officio member Carla Fresquez.
Present.
And then Supervisor Frericks, I do not see online, nor a representative from his office, but Supervisor Provenza.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Jim.
Hello. I may have to leave early, but I am here now.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay. So this concludes our roll call, and I think we're ready to get started with our agenda. Let's start with agenda item number 1. Commissioner White will read the land acknowledgement for us. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Commissioner White is surprised. And glad I put my contacts in so I could read it. We should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered. For thousands of years,
That mic is.
for thousands of
The
years.
mic is off.
Let me see.
Your mic is not working.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm gonna get back down to the kids' table.
Do you want to?
All right, yeah.
We can hear it online, if that means anything.
Okay, sure. Just project.
Okay, we should take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we're gathered. For thousands of years, this land has been home to the Patwin people. Today, there are 3 federally recognized Patwin tribes: Cachadihi Band of Winton Indians of the Calusa Indian Community, Quetzaldihi Band of Winton Indians, and Yochadihi Winton Nation. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands.
Thank you. Let's move on to agenda item number 2, so approval of the agenda. Commissioners, is there anything you would like to say? Do you approve? Do you need an amendment to anything? Do we have a motion to approve? Okay, so that's Commissioner Britton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Serena, discussion, questions? None? Do you want to do the roll call or do you want us to do all in favor?
I think I have to do all in favor.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstention? Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, so we're opening the floor to public comments. As a reminder to members of the public, you have 3 minutes to share any feedback, comment you like with us. You are invited to state your name, any affiliation you like us to be aware of. And please make a comment on items that are not already on the agenda. Do we have any public commenters?
I do not see any public comment online at this time.
Thank you. Anyone in the room, public comments? Not at this time. So this closes our time on agenda item number 3. This meeting is going to end on time if we continue at this pace. So agenda item number 4. Let's look at the commission meeting minutes from November 27th. Refer to attachment B. I'm going to assume you've had time to read the minutes. Any comments on that? Does everything look good? I'm seeing some thumbs up, and I have to confess I'm missing Commissioner Reed. Okay, so are we ready to make a motion on that?
I so move that we approve them.
That's Commissioner Dattel. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Discussions, questions before we vote on it? No reactions, no public comments?
I do not see any public comment.
Okay, thank you. So all in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
I don't see any abstentions. I don't see any nays. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item number 5, let's listen to staff announcements and reports. So we're starting with 5A Regional Resilience Grant Award announcement, and our Sustainability Manager, Kristen Wraithall, has the floor.
Thank you. So the first staff announcement for you all, wanted to share the exciting news that the County Sustainability Division recently was awarded a Regional Resilience Grant Award from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resilience Program. This is, if Commissioner members, back to July, I believe, the Commission voted to write a letter of support in favor of the county's grant application for this grant program. And what this will do, the co-applicants on this application were the Yochidehi Winton Nation, Yolo, as I say that, UC Davis, City of Woodland, City of Davis, Cool Davis, Valley Vision, and others. The idea behind this is there's a collective need at the county level to have interjurisdictional between, public-private partnerships to advance climate action. And without a formal collaborative and agreement and MOU, all of our partners are left in a constant state of, there's a grant application available, let's put together a team, let's work on this together. And so the idea behind this is it's about $600,000 over the course of 3 years to do outreach, to identify the partners for a collaborative, develop a governance structure, and develop a set of countywide climate action priorities that all partners can agree to, building off of existing climate action adaptation planning efforts that are going on, and then developing project scopes for those that could very directly be tied to grant applications. There's funding for a grant writer to support the collaborative through that 3-year process. I heard a cheer for that. I agree. And so we're really hopeful that this is going to set us on a good path to be able to do collaborative climate action planning moving forward. So we're waiting on the go-ahead from OPR to start expending funds and do kickoff meetings, but much more information to come as we move forward with this.
Thank you, Kristen. That's exciting news. We heard the cheers of celebration. One quick question. Does the Board of Supervisors already know about that? Have you had a chance to share that news with the supervisors?
Yes, we sent out an announcement in a weekly board update to all the supervisors to share the exciting news.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions or comments from our commissioners?
Way to go.
That was Commissioner Britton. Okay. This is great news. Thank you. I think we're ready for the next item. Unless there is any online reactions. No? Okay, so 5B. Climate Action and Adaptation Plan CAP Youth Calendar Art Contest update by Tess Vaccaro. Hi, Tess.
Hi, I hope you all are doing well and Happy New Year. I'm here to share that we're still full steam ahead on the CAP Youth Calendar Art Contest. We actually pushed the deadline back to February 16th instead of January 19th, which was last Friday, because we have 7 submissions and ideally we want 13. So we're full steam ahead getting those submissions in. Our team has gone to multiple outreach events, such as the opening of the story trail at Cape Hay Open Space Park, tabled at the library at the Teen Study and Chill at Mary L. Stevens Library in Davis, as well as Sunday Fun Day. And we also went to the Woodland Mutual Housing at Spring Lake, their community potluck, and had an art table where the kids got to actually work on their pieces there and hand them in and get help and support. So we're really looking forward to the next 5 submissions or however many come in the next month. And, yeah.
Fantastic. Questions? Cheers.
Yeah, excited to see the art.
Tess, before you go away, don't not so quick. I won't keep you too long, but do you mind very briefly letting us know how the experience has been for you? So what I want to hear is, did you encounter any challenges in doing outreach? I'm asking you that because that can inform us on how, what we're doing well and what we can do better.
Yeah, so I brought like over 100 forms to the different outreach events, and I
Oh.
only have like 30 left. So a lot of people are coming up to the table and
Mhm.
taking the flyers. I think there's just a disconnect between
Mhm.
actually like where is the flyer getting like shoved in a backpack or like left on the fridge. So like
Mhm.
what's the issue in getting the actual art to the
Okay.
library, the submission drop-offs?
Mhm.
But a lot of people come up to the tables and show interest.
Mhm.
We had grandparents come and bring stuff.
Mm.
"Oh, I'm going to see my grandkids. Can I have some flyers to give to them as well?" So there is interest. It's just like that follow through, which is the difficult part.
Fantastic. And then I'm just going to share one last piece of comment. I'm aware that all of you on staff are already over schedule. Your schedule is full. So just humor me. Have you been able to reach out to schools? And what I mean by that is art teachers, like just in terms of dropping something specifically for art teachers in case they do something like a class project with their students.
Yeah, so that's in the process. Bernadette Austin actually got us in contact with the superintendent of
Okay.
schools for Yolo County. So exploring that contact, that was a recent contact that we received. So making use of her connections in West Sacramento as well. With the
Okay,
school districts.
that is excellent news. Thank you. After the meeting, remind me to give you the contact of an ethnic studies teacher because there might be some interested connections between climate action and ethnic groups in case you're interested.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Tess. Any online comments?
We received a public comment, and just to ask for folks through the chat, because not everyone can see the chat. If you have public comment, please raise your hand. I will read. We have a public comment here from Bridget, who asked if there is a way for people to create a station in the library so they don't walk about without submitting. And I'll pass it
Ooh.
back off to Tess to answer that.
Did not think about that.
That would be lovely. That was the original plan. When I was in contact with different library staff, I had that in my emails, but it didn't seem like that was going to work out at the time. So what I did was look at what events are currently happening and where can I tag along instead of creating a separate program, because that doesn't seem like anyone has the capacity to let us use space or do that. So just adding on to pre-existing events. I'd love to, have a dedicated workshop, but it's just really capacity, and it's up to the libraries ultimately for that.
And I will add, each library branch does have a submission station where
Awesome.
all of the registration flyers are there. There's a place for students to drop their artwork. So that station does exist.
Fantastic. Commissioners? Oh, okay. Yes, Commissioner White.
Sorry, Skeeter over here again. So thanks so much for doing this. And I am really apologetic that I didn't think about this till now. But I have a friend who's in charge of Friends of the Library for all the libraries, and the friends are built-in volunteers. So Tess, when we're done, I will introduce you to him, Benjamin, and he may be able to get the friends to all be in each library on one day and pick those up. So I am so sorry I didn't think about this till right now.
That's amazing, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm loving the synergy. So I'm feeling high from all of that interaction. Let's keep going. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tess, and well done. Yeah. I think we're ready for the next update. Keep the good news coming, please.
Thank you. So Julia is homesick today, but is trying to join in to give this update. We're having some issues with our Zoom platform. So I will give her update, and then we'll try to get her connected as a panelist. But if folks maybe noticed, the newsletter this month came through in a different format after a lot of struggle with Granicus, the county's online system. Ultimately, we decided to switch to a new online server. So we're using MailChimp moving forward. We were having some challenges with delivery. I think many commission members were inconsistently getting the newsletter. The formatting was coming through really wonky, depending on whether you are opening it up in Chrome or in another internet browser. And so we troubleshot it for many months, and we finally moved over to MailChimp. So welcome any feedback on that. It's actually, it's really nice to be able to get some more dynamic data on who is opening and clicking on links. And so please, if anybody has thoughts or feedback on the new format, would be very happy to talk about that. Another thing that this enables us to do is have a simple registration link. There was no way for us to direct add folks to the newsletter before. That's something that we can do now. So the MailChimp on our website has been updated so that it's a very simple link to fill in. And this will enable it to be much easier for folks at events to scan a QR code and automatically be taken to a page. So I think that this is moving in a really good direction in terms of our communication and outreach, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you. That's very modern of the commission and the sustainability team. Commissioner Serena.
Yes, quick question. Are we as commissioners automatically opted in to receive the newsletter?
Mhm.
I don't think I've seen it. Is it coming to, I'll ask after, I guess, to see what.
If you could email, all of you you are all on the mailing list and you all
Okay.
should have received it. It came as a MailChimp. We didn't receive any bounce backs, but it's possible if you have, and something we have in a previous role, if you have spammed, marked a other MailChimp newsletter as spam, sometimes ours gets caught up. So it's not a perfect solution. So we can have, if Tess and Julia could follow up and we'll get back to you to make sure that you're registered.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, the newsletter was sent last Thursday. If you want to, when you check your emails, if you want to try to locate it. Anyone else has a comment, feedback? So I want to, again, thank you all who, working on the newsletter. It's been looking better and better every single time. Very professional, and the information is really on par. And the topics that you're covering, very practical tips, but also all the opportunities that are out there. So that's great. And on that topic also, whoever is listening, thanking community members, because I know you've been receiving information to share as well. Great. Any public comments on that?
Public comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And so for the last staff update, the CAP timeline for this, I just took the long range calendar attachment and moved it up top because we never have time to talk about the long range calendar at the end. And I wanted to make sure that we could give it its due because this is important. So you look at the long range calendar attachment, it's included in your, it's included twice in your packet so that you have it in both locations. But just to do a quick overview so that you all know the process moving forward. So obviously this month, we're talking about our draft table of contents, our implementation and monitoring plan, and our outcomes from our community conversation series. In February, this is going to be a really critical month for us. The commission, we received a tremendous amount of feedback from commission members on the strategies and actions that are going to end up in the CAP. The interdepartmental green team, this is the county staff team that is going to be working with the sustainability division on implementation. We had 20 staff members fill out feedback spreadsheets. The buy-in for this has just been really positively overwhelming, and it's incredible to see those relationships getting built and staff participating in this process. But that's a lot of information for the DUDEC team to work through and sort through to try to get us to a concrete strategy measure action list. But we need to, at a certain point, pens need to go down. We need to start moving forward so that we can lock in our calculations, our financing plan, and move forward. So the hope is we'll be bringing forward a revised list of measures and actions at next month's commission meeting that we would like to tentatively adopt, knowing that there might be changes as we move forward, but that'll really give the DUDEC team the go ahead to draft the plan and really get to the nuts and bolts of what implementation is going to take. In March, it's a bit of a lull. We'll be talking about the phasing of some of those measures and actions. And then in April, this is when staff are going to be going to the Board of Supervisors to give them that preview on the draft climate action and adaptation plan. The draft will not be available until, as we see in the schedule here, early June is when we're hoping to open the public comment period. Want to give the Board of Supervisors a heads up before that draft goes out, well ahead of time, to have that conversation, share what is going to be in that draft, what the process is going to look like moving forward. So in June, we will have a 30-day public comment period. We will have our next round of CAP workshops, which we'll be talking about CAP workshops next, so we won't get into that in too great of a detail, but those workshops, series 3 is going to be focused on getting input on the draft plan. And then that brings us to the commission getting a revised version of the CAP at the September meeting. There's a slim chance that we could get that in August. I'm also trying to be realistic. I'm going on maternity leave April 26th and get back mid-August. So we're going to see what we can do. I think September is probably a likely time where we're going to bring that draft forward to the CAP. And then either at the first or second meeting of October, we'll be bringing the final CAP to the board for adoption. And that's to say, this is about 2 months delayed from the schedule that we had originally outlined 2 years ago. So not bad in the grand scheme of things. This does not need to delay implementation. And staff have already for months been talking with board members, with the county administrator's office to make sure that we're lining up funding and financing so that we can start program implementation this fall. So those budget requests are, and that's part of the reason of approving the strategy list in February. That gives staff the information that we need to go out for budget requests so that we don't need to delay and we can start the beginning of the fiscal year starting with implementation. So I wanted to walk through that because this is a lot, and that also means that the next couple of months are going to be really intense.
Yeah.
And a lot more to come. I'm happy to take any questions and talk through this, and I'll end my overview there.
Thank you, Kristen. I'll get us started on that. So this looks like a solid plan, and I want to thank you for indicating when the green team will have meetings. So it's very exciting to see. Thanks for adding that. And just at this point also, I want to share a message with my fellow commissioners. So tonight we almost did not have quorum. So thank you to everyone who was able to come today. But looking at the schedule over the next few months, it's critical if we can be there, that we be there so we move the process forward. The day we don't have quorum, we don't have a meeting, and that pushes things 1 month further back. So any questions, comment for the sustainability team, for Kristen? I have one while people are gathering their thoughts. Can we agree that since sometime in January, no, actually in February, so there is a briefing to the Board of Supervisors. I'm guessing it's going to be done by you and your team. So I think that when I'm looking at the schedule, in the past, we've had the chair address the board and just kind of like give a summary of the commission's activities. I'm thinking since anyway you have to be in front of them regularly to give updates on specific points, is this something that we can forego? Because that's going to be a repeat of information for them.
Yeah, and we did a update. Staff was requested to do an update to the board on the whole CAP process in December.
Yeah.
So we did that. We'll likely be going at least one more time between now and February to move forward some of our ARP funding requests. So that is going to be added to the long range calendar as well. So there will be at least one more update. And we're also happy to coordinate with you, NJ, on what makes the most sense.
So we don't have to table on that, but maybe something for the long range calendar at the very end of it. I think that once we're done with the whole CAP process and the board has adopted it, it will be interesting to get feedback from commissioners and then just put together something that we will share with the board, just as kind of like a final address and reflection on the work done as a commission. That will be my suggestion. So we don't need to go in front of them and then just recap the activities. We already have Kristen doing it. So like I said, we're just tabling that long range calendar. We can revisit that when the time comes at the end of the process, right? Anyone on the floor who would like to share something? Ken or Adelita?
I know you're going to be stepping out from maternity leave in April to August. how are we going to deal with it? Like the preparation,
We-
like
We're
who's
having
doing your
withdrawal
work?
symptoms already.
I'm getting paranoid.
We'll-
No, I just was wondering, yeah, who's gonna step in for you?
Yeah, so our team is having an internal strategic planning meeting next
Great.
week where we're going to come up with a whole plan for all of everything. But the current plan is for Julia to step into my role while I'm gone with support from Leslie
Mhm.
Linbo, the Director of Community Services,
Awesome.
supporting her. So Leslie has been a great champion of the climate division's work or the sustainability division's work. And we are working on my plan for when I'm
Okay.
out for 3 months.
Thanks, Adelita, for speaking on behalf of all of us. We were all wondering.
Yeah,
You know?
so great. And anything we could do to help or support, please
Mhm.
don't hesitate to reach out.
Like, would you like us to not reach out to you? Well, okay. Thanks, Adelita. Ken?
A quick question. I see that May and August are blank. Are there no meetings on those months?
There will be meetings. It's just that we don't have agenda items set at this point.
So if we wanted to suggest agenda items for those meetings, we could.
You are always welcome to suggest agenda items, item 9 on the agenda for today. But it is highly unlikely that these will not be populated with agenda items in the coming months, but always welcome recommendations for agenda items.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Online? Maybe ex officio commissioners? Public comment? Would you let me know if Supervisor Provenza is still here, or just signal to me if he leaves, so that way I don't call in his name, you know?
Supervisor Provenza is still here.
Okay, so no public comments, right?
No public comments at this time.
So I think this concludes our time on agenda item number 5, staff announcements and reports. Let's move on to agenda item number 6. We're going to receive an update on the CAP community conversation outcomes. Please refer to attachments C and D, and Kristen Raithwall has the floor.
I'm just going to provide a very brief overview, and then I also want to open it up to, not to put you on the spot, Adelita, but we had a discussion at this month's Equity and Engagement Advisory Committee meeting. And I want to make sure, and I also am just realizing that we don't have our TAC updates on our agenda for today. So that's an oversight on the part of staff, and we'll make sure that that is included moving forward. But we can include that update as part of this conversation from the E&E TAC side. But there are 2 attachments, and I'm just going to provide a very brief overview of them. So in total, we had 9 workshops for this workshop series, and a special shout out, Brandon from Cool Davis is in the audience today. Cool Davis hosted a satellite location in Davis at the Rancho Yolo Senior Community Center, and that was a great opportunity to add another location and get really concrete feedback. The first attachment here, attachment C, this is a summary of all of the workshops, the feedback that we received. Rough numbers of attendees, noting that in many cases, attendee numbers are underrepresented. We're capturing the folks who signed in, and a lot of folks decided to skip signing in, which that is fine. But we have community by community summaries of 2 things. One, the 3 to 7, depending on the community and how voting shook out, that climate actions, adaptations, essentially the actions that folks voted for most often in that community. As a reminder for the format of these, at each one of the community workshops, we had 4 table-based discussion sessions that community members were able to free flow through around transportation, energy, healthy communities, and waste and water. And so we captured votes across all of those topic areas. We as staff, and folks are interested, we have super detailed data where we go table by table, sector by sector. For the purpose of these summaries, we're just looking at the most voted for items, and then the key discussion points that really highlight what the conversation looked like in that community, what we were hearing. There were specific project requests. And so staff are going to be taking these summaries and doing briefings with each one of the supervisors' offices so that they can see what their community members. We had workshops in all 5 of our districts and had great feedback across all of these areas that were really, really concrete. And so we're really excited about this summary here. And then if you go to the next attachment, attachment D, it is very tiny in your attachment screen. You might need to zoom in a little bit, but this just captures across all of our workshops what the key themes were. We did receive 1 written public comment on this that I will let Julia share when we get to the public comment section. But this is a macro view. There will, of course, be an opportunity for us to tweak and understand what each community needs and create tailored solutions. We're not just looking at the things that got the most number of votes, but this is a really helpful tool to see where these conversations shook out. So with that, that's just the overview of these attachments. The Equity and Engagement Advisory Committee had a discussion on broad feedback on what worked well and what we'd like to change moving forward. And if Adelita, if you could take a few minutes to share that overview, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Yeah, so we had a lot of feedback on the outcomes. We were very happy with the attendance, the different communities that were represented, and of course, big thanks to our community-based organization partners who did a ton of work as well with outreach. So thank you to all of those organizations and partners who have been very consistent with our outreach plan. One of the things that we wanted to flag were, some things with making sure that the residents that are representing the community are given the space to be vocal, and also, there's materials in their language. So that was one of the things we flagged. So that's an important item that we want to see, in the future handled. And, but overall, the attendance, the engagement with those, this chart that I'm looking at, attachment D, very reflective of what the feedback was. Lots of concerns around transportation, alternative transportation. Some of the things that I heard personally were access to incentivized weatherization, and also access to programs that can help folks that don't meet certain income levels but are still, struggling. And so really finding the area where people are slipping through the cracks and helping them. So those were the kinds of things that we heard, but overall, really, really happy with the outcomes. The ones that I attended, our supervisors were there, so not all of them, but the ones representing that area. So we're really happy to feel the support of the County Board of Supervisors on this when we're out there in the community, and the staff here. So overall, things went really well. We're excited about those strategies moving forward that we flagged on for the next round of input on the draft. And of course, we understand that there's going to be, options to chime in virtually. And so we want to make sure that that is also broadcast widely for those that can't make the in-person feedback sessions. Other than that, I don't know, did I miss anything, Kristen?
I think the one other thing that we talked about was staff capacity moving forward.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
So,
I can really quick. Yes, this was a really intense time, like doing all of that, by the way, and I'm, we're volunteers too. So it was even intense for us, but we realized that was a lot of work.
for sure.
That was a lot of work
So-
yeah. So we want to be sensitive to how this is rolled out for the draft, and how to be effective, but not over,
Mhm.
taxing on personal calendars and energy. So we want to be very strategic with that. Yes.
So a few questions, follow-up questions on that, if it's okay. So I'm asking the staff, and I'm not asking you for a number, but did you have to work overtime on that during the workshop seasons? I see some
Yes.
notes and like thoughtful silence. Okay. Okay. So now I'm turning to my fellow commissioners, and I know several of you were able to go and help in person. And are you comfortable giving an estimate? I know, Robin, I think you went to every single workshops.
I went to everyone except for the virtual one.
Okay. How many hours do you estimate grossly? How many hours you think? The reason I'm asking is to get a sense of, every commissioner, as far as I know, many of you, you come to the meeting once a month, but many are active outside of our commission meetings, doing outreach and helping in other ways. But especially for the workshops, I'm just trying to get a sense. Adelita?
As far as the hours?
Yeah.
Well, there's, preparation,
Mhm.
working on some of the, like on the E&E TAC, we're doing the outreach and we're strategizing the outreach. So
Mhm.
we're spending time there. We're spending time before that, before we get to our
Okay.
TAC meetings, and then when we're there at the workshops.
Mhm.
But I mean, yeah, I know we do put a lot of hours in, but probably that's nothing compared to the actual staff time that's going in.
Mhm.
But it's been a very big lift collectively. And I feel like overall, we had these goals.
Mhm.
So this is something that we did without any other model to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, because no county looks the same. So we have to try to conduct the outreach based on our own,
Yeah.
map lines and all the different demographics within those. So really trying to best conduct that outreach, get the folks there,
Mhm.
have the materials that is going to best articulate what we're trying to do. So there's so much.
I hear you. So then, one of my last questions, and then I have a comment to make after that. Would you say that all that effort and time spent was worth it in regards to the outcome?
So when I see this breakdown and when I see compared to, I definitely feel like, the outcomes, I'm not surprised at what I'm seeing. But it's really important data for
Yeah.
us to like say this is based on our community's feedback. So it's absolutely critical, I
And
believe.
it's been sampled from every critical part of Yolo. So,
Absolutely. These are parts of the county that we don't typically hear from. So there was
Okay.
the effort that was made, I feel like it was worth it.
so this is my, quick comment on that. So number one, I'm hoping that you hear that often from other people as well. Thank you all. Thank you, Kristen, your incredible staff, commissioners, community-based organizations that helped on that, because I know every single CBOs that has been on board, I'm sure at the workshops and helped.
Yeah.
Seriously, thank you. And I want to highlight, Adelita, what you said in that we're doing something that hasn't really been done before in terms of a model of doing outreach. We pulled it off. It's something that works. And I know you were creative with the budget because there were some standards, community standards, which was always offer childcare, always offer food, be mindful of if people have transportation problem, and also want to commend you for addressing language justice. Spanish translation was available on site. So again, it's a lot of work. Thank you so much. I know that as we're doing this work, you're creating a framework that can be useful to other counties, useful to other organizations. And I need to say, I think it's okay if we feel a sense of pride and we, give ourselves some flowers. You deserve the award that you got. That is one of the
Absolutely.
reasons you had the award. So a few more months to go, please, spend your energy wisely. Let's keep going. But I would just want to also, invite us to take just for a few seconds a step back and realize that we have reached over 1,000 people because we've had over 1,000 answers to the surveys. And then we've had hundreds in terms of the people who attended the workshops online and in person and provided feedback. And we also made a point of going to as many locations in Yolo County and unincorporated areas as possible. Again, this is important work, and I thank you all for that time and energy. I'm going to stop here for now. Yes, Robin.
Yeah, I just want to add that beyond getting the data that helps us guide priorities in the plan, it's developing the relationships that have to carry us through the implementation. I mean, we're doing this plan so it can be implemented, and hearing those voices and meeting those people and representing Yolo County, all really important in my mind. So I think we've begun, helping to build the relationships that will make people comfortable with this whole endeavor. And I really appreciate that, that strategy.
We have a comment from Carla Fresquez.
Yes, Carla, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a little bit of carrying on what you all were saying about just such an impressive accumulation of effort and time and data and perspective from such a broad and big audience. It's really amazing. But I also wanted to share a little bit of an alternative perspective in terms of the value of this experience. I had at least one of my Climate Action Fellows, which is a UC-wide funded program for integrating undergraduates and graduate students into climate action. I had at least one of them participate as a volunteer facilitator, and their experience was actually, and then I had another student actually participate, or a couple other students participate as attendees. And I wanted to share that their experience facilitating that workshop, or in that workshop, we've been using and benefiting from that experience as he shared those lessons learned, the practices, the approach in our own climate resilience planning process. And so just want to acknowledge that there was a really valuable educational opportunity I'm sure for all the participants, I'm sure for many of the volunteers and facilitators, and that those educational and those learning experiences percolate through our communities in many ways, including unexpected ones. So I just want to acknowledge that and appreciate that in front of you all.
Paula, what you just shared is incredibly important, and I'm so happy that Supervisor Provenza, I hope he's still there, had a chance to hear it himself in the meeting. So again, very quick highlight, being able to train some of the students as we're doing the work. Something also, Robin, that you shared that I want to highlight is giving our community members a sense of ownership of the CAP, so that when the final draft comes out, hopefully they will be able to recognize their own input, knowing that they are the one who, helped draft it. And so the more we're able to get community members on board, the easier it is for the CAP to be adopted and for people to actually push it forward and help implement it and talk to their neighbors and so on. Carla, thank you for the feedback. That's really important. Anyone else? Commissioner Britton.
Yeah, more or less following on the footsteps of what you just said. I noticed at I only went to a couple of them, and they were in the far fringes of the county in Winters and Gwinda. And it is notable that there were a couple of conversations I had there where notable skepticism about the county's ability to follow through on helping county citizens in things that are important to them was expressed. And they were really impressed by the fact that a commissioner was sitting there listening to them and writing stuff down, and that there was this whole energy in the room that was actually taking them seriously. And I don't know if they're going to take that home, and I don't know if they're going to help on the next, but I bet they are. And I really felt that sort of swing in those conversations, like, wow, they're listening to us. This is cool. And so I think the structure that you guys set up worked in that way, because I think it's something that the citizens hadn't seen before and really appreciated.
Yeah.
I need to say everything that you've been expressing, including Carla, that is a demonstration of community-driven process. Like, it's really the community that is driving and pushing forth the input here. Thank you for offering that. And then the last thing I need to share on that, and I'll open the floor again. I want to acknowledge all the community partners that are not officially community partners, but that have helped during the workshop seasons. We've had other groups inviting us to present workshops. Democracy Winters was one of them. And I know some of our commissioners also made presentations at the natural resources committees or the cities, climate action commissions as well. So my point is that there's been, I'm just very impressed with the community engagement. And like I said, it's a long process. We have many more months to go. So I hope we keep the momentum up. Commissioner Kim?
Yes, just a quick question for Kristen. Noting how robust the data gathering is, and especially attachment D, so impressive. How do we ensure that DUDAC, as they are, reconciling or consolidating all of the data, that especially the data gathered from all of these workshops are indeed accounted for? Because it seems like DUDAC has been working on their own hypothesis on what strategies are most important quite for some time. And I know some of this is as fresh as last week, or like since January 4th. Is there a process, or how is this going to be weighed compared to their prior working hypothesis from last year? And then also, of course, all of the data gathered from the Natural and Working Lands TAC as well.
Yeah, and I can just add a couple of comments briefly, and then we have several members of the DUDEC team on the line who I just promoted to panelists so that they can add their comments as well. I'll pass it off to Jennifer Reed next, but just to remind commission members too that it's been a few months, but DUDEC has for all of these strategies, I believe it's 9 different categories to prioritize these. And so the commission feedback, public feedback, those are factors that are weighing in addition to the greenhouse gas impact, in addition to cost and feasibility. And so this input is being integrated into the process. And Jennifer, if you are able to comment on this now, sorry to put you on the spot, could you add some thoughts on how you're thinking about this as you move forward with the draft development?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's a wonderful question. For better or worse, we have a lot to do still. So while this feedback has been recent, we still have a great opportunity to incorporate it. So we have not put pencils down yet. We are going through all the feedback. We are adding in that feedback in our master strategy measures and action spreadsheet to make sure that those voices are heard and all of this great effort is being incorporated into the plan. So in one way, when we identify which phase the actions will go in, there is a weight to the fact if people support it. So even if maybe it doesn't have a huge greenhouse gas reduction potential, if it's something that has great co-benefits and the community is interested in, it may push it from, let's say, phase 3 to phase 2, or from phase 2 to phase 1. So it's a consideration in which actions go first when the community has support. Because we have a really ambitious goal, a lot of the actions will remain on the table. However, the CAP will be set up for each strategy to have a snapshot of the key feedback from this outreach that says, under the decarbonized transportation sector, the 3 things that people really liked and really supported were this. So when the board goes to consider these actions, it is very clear what the community expressed the most interest in to support that. And then, of course, when we get to the TOC, we can talk about how things will be summarized in a snapshot, and then the full detail will be provided in the appendix as well. Michael, did you have any other ideas to support that?
Well, just that we are still going through all of the comments and suggestions that have been made by the commission and the green team. So looking to integrate those as best we can into the measures prior to putting the numbers to them and starting to quantify.
Thank you, Michael. Follow-up question. In terms of a timeline, do you feel confident that you'll be able to do that by the end of the month?
It's a heavy lift, but yeah, we need to get through the comments over the next week and a half, and then set in motion that weighting that Jennifer talked about, and putting in the emission factors, those kinds of things, so that we can actually quantify measure by measure what the emission reductions are. One thing I would say about actions, that there was like 230 actions. It looks like we'll be consolidating some of those because a lot of them repeat. So you'll see a much more concise set of actions for each of the measures.
Thank you, Michael. Commissioner Kim, any follow-up questions?
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Britton.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it fits now or later, but let me just ask it and we can postpone if needed. I'm just curious about the current status of the natural working lands feedback, because it seems like it should be more or less co-equal with this other community-based feedback in your early planning and prioritization of strategies and actions and projects. So where's that sit? And when do we hear about it?
I can provide a quick update, and then Jennifer, Michael, please add anything else. We received about 100 survey responses, and they've been trickling in slowly. We got another one on Friday. And so we've Gretchen spent a lot of time compiling all of these. We did a paper mailer. And so every single written comment had to be hand transcribed and deciphered. And so that took some time. The DUDEC team has had that, and we are still working through individual pieces with the Natural and Working Lands Technical Advisory Committee. Earlier this last week, we were looking at acreage data, for example, and ground truthing or conservation land acreage data to make sure we're starting with a good baseline. Next month, the Natural and Working Lands Advisory Committee is going through a process of reviewing proposed acreage data. So actually thinking forward, where can we apply these different strategies? So we can, Jennifer and Michael, if it feels like February would be an appropriate time to bring some feedback or just an update to the commission, it might be helpful. I can coordinate with you offline to get some outcomes of that data to the commission in February.
Yeah, definitely. I think that will be really helpful. And I will say we found the outreach on this to be really useful feedback. And we understand, like with all outreach, it's a small sample size and it may not necessarily represent everyone in the community that has agricultural practices. But what we found particularly helpful is identifying where things had hindrances to funding. So we will pass that information on to our funding and financing team members to figure out how to overcome those barriers. So really good feedback there.
Commissioner Kim.
Yes, thank you. I know, Kristen, I might have missed this in our last Natural Working Lands meeting, but do you know if we're going to get something like an attachment D for all of the survey responses from all of the ag stakeholders?
That's what I'm suggesting we bring forward in February if possible. We haven't done it yet just because we haven't finished the data analysis yet.
I see.
And so I think that we can do that when it's available. It's a little bit trickier on the natural and working land side of things because everything is situational depending on crop type. So it's sort of like, this works for an apple orchard, this works for walnut cultivation. And so we've had some back and forth conversations about the best way to package this data to have it be useful. And that's what will ultimately go towards these acreage data that we're going to be talking about at the February meeting. So I think that our team, if we can add this to the long range calendar for February, and we can coordinate with the DUDEC team about what we might be able to provide to the Natural and Working Lands TAC as soon as that data is available.
Cool.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kim. Commissioner Britton.
I just want to say thanks. That's perfect. Glad to hear it.
Okay. Anyone else on this floor?
Could I just add a comment? And then we have one public
Online?
comment online and one
Okay.
public comment that was submitted previously that I want to make sure we can highlight.
Yes.
So looping way back around to the question of capacity, I'm so grateful for all of the positive feedback that we've gotten about this. And thank you so much for the support. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer or the reality check, but I do have to be the reality check. We cannot do 9 workshops again. We will not be doing 9 workshops again. That was way overextending staff's capacity and the capacity of our volunteers and partners. And so the conversation with the E&E TAC acknowledged that earlier this week. And we're going to be having conversations as an advisory committee over the next 2 months to strategize how do we lift up our equity goals and ensure that the communities that really need to be heard in this process are prioritized for this next round of workshops. I think to put a pin in it, 9 workshops was too much for 5 staff members. I'm going to be on leave during that time frame, and it absolutely kills me inside, but Gretchen is on a limited term contract and her time with the county ends in March. And so we're going to be down 2 staff members in addition to everything else going on in June when this workshop series happens. And so I would love to be able to deliver this level of workshops for everything, but I think there's been a real acknowledgement on our end of what our capabilities are, and it's not going to be 9. So we'll be working creatively and we'll have discussions and updates to the commission in probably March as we think a few months forward for what that proposed workshop series looks like. And we'll be sharing more information as we go on.
That sounds good. And thanks for the reality check. And you don't need to answer this now, but I'm wondering if the way the workshops were done until now gives a sense of technology capacity in the county, meaning that it will obviously be less work if you're able to receive input digitally. But I don't know if in terms of equity, how that's feasible, depending on which part of the county you're trying to reach. And another thing, when you said, night workshops moving forward, another possibility, I want to understand that that includes weekends as well, I'm guessing, because you're not supposedly working during the weekend.
I think that, we have a commitment to delivering this. Evenings are outside of our work hours too.
Sure.
And so for us, we want to do things at times that work for the community. And so I think nights and weekends are on the table. They're on the table still as we move forward because we do have that commitment to accessibility. But I think it's more the number of them that we're struggling with. We also have only a month. This is a 30-day public comment period. And so these 9 workshops were spread out mostly over most of them were in 2 weeks, which was just that was really tight, but it was over a longer period of time. And we are exploring what the online comment options are. There will be other options as well to submit public comments online outside of this workshop period, and the logistics of that we'll have updates for at future commission meetings.
Thank you. So we over time regarding this agenda item. So let's take the public comment and the other online comment.
The first public comment is Chris Granger.
Hi, Chris, you have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
And I have to promote Chris. See, I'm really out of practice here. Sorry about that, Chris.
That is fine. We're Cool Day. This is Chris Granger from Cool Davis. We were really glad to participate in the workshops in November and December. And I wanted to highlight 3 sort of ideas related to community outreach and the experience of community organizations working with you, and maybe some ideas about reducing staff time. So, I think we all know that we were on a difficult timeline with the reality of hiring all of the community organizations and trying to get them all on board and then get our timeline going with the actual workshops. Community outreach can be difficult, and so we want to try and plan with best practices. And for these kind of workshops, sometimes it can take 3 to 4 months to do the kind of planning for this kind of activity ahead of time. The second thing I want to highlight is that you know, real outreach and engagement is expensive. And it's not always easy to do. And because we're trying to get people to connect to people in real time. And, you know, just what Kristen was saying about the natural lands data coming in, you know, there's just so many dimensions to what we're trying to accomplish here. And I'm not sure, and this is nobody's fault in the room, that there was enough money allocated to outreach for this project. So that's our reality that we're dealing with right now. And finally, Cool Davis experimented with trying to do some remote events where Cool Davis staff take the responsibility to do the work of what has been a county staff responsibility. So we tried to replicate what was happening in another location and take responsibility for all of the activities that would happen in that space. So I'm hoping that some of the things we learned in that can be helpful to our process going forward, and maybe help us think both about how we do outreach in the future beyond the CAP, but also how we use the tools that we have available to us to you know, think about how we use our time and who's available to do that work. Thank you.
Chris, thank you for your comment. I can't go answer it for the sake of time, but I would like to invite you to connect with Adelita and the tag team for the feedback you provided. Seems to be some synergy there. And again, thanks to Cool Davis and of course the Odd Fellows for all your work on this. Next comment.
Next, I'm gonna, and Sheila, I'll promote you to a panelist, but Sheila Allen.
Thank you for joining us, Sheila. Deputy Chief Allen, are you muted?
No,
Okay.
I had to wait to be promoted. Yeah, thank you for this chance. I thought that I attended the one in Davis at the Odd Fellows, and it was amazing. I thought, as somebody who's gone to a lot of these kind of things, I thought that it was organized well, and what I felt like it was so much more than just we're giving input, but I learned a lot. I know that that was brought up already by Carla, but I want to second that it was really educational. And because it was, at least the way that I did it, as I tried to rotate around to get different people at the table. So it wasn't just the same perspective, and it was a nice mix of different ages. As somebody who works primarily with older adults for a long time, it was nice to have people of all ages together. My one suggestion for going forward, because as someone who's done many town halls and has some in their future, also, it is a lot of work, and it's just not the planning and the implementing, but then the analyzing of all the different information that you received. But I think that something helpful that we've done before is to, rather than trying to get people to come to you or give you information, instead go to them. So try to see where, when you're analyzing, who are we missing, who haven't we heard from, and then instead of trying to reach out to them, go where they are. As an example, we were trying to reach lower income older adults, so we went to lower income older adult housing, because that's where they were, and then they didn't have to try to find us at all. So just a suggestion for going forward, and thanks for all your work on this. It's really important.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for the feedback and for joining us.
Thanks, Sheila. And then we had a write-in public comment from Scott Stewart on this item, and I'll pass it off to Julia Olson. Julia, do you have that on hand by any chance?
Yeah, okay. Earlier today, Scott had sent in a note for item 6. He is currently unavailable at the Yolo Sub-Basin Groundwater Agency meeting. But regarding the dot vote totals, he wrote in saying, it seems that it would be best for Yolo cap implementation to emphasize, end quote, give higher weight to, end quote, communities less advantaged by using median income as a counterbalance to the weight dot votes. Dot activity totals should be weighted such that wealthier votes do not overwhelm the rest of the community votes. I'm not sure it would inform the picture of what items were most popular, but take a look if time permits. And that's the end of his comment.
Thank you, Julia. Any additional public comments? No?
No additional, hold on, let me do one more
And-
double check. No additional public comments.
Okay, and then for the record, Sheila Allen's comment, I mean, she gave it during the public comment section, but she's not a public commenter, she's on staff. So thank you, everyone. I think this concludes our time on agenda item number 6. And so we are moving on to agenda item number 7. We're going to hear like a review and provide feedback on the CAP table of contents. So I think, Kristen, you'll get us started on that, and the team will join you. So please refer to attachments E, F, and G.
Thanks. As I pull up the slides for Jennifer to give the overview, just wanted to share that we are sharing a CAP table of contents framework for folks to provide input on to get the sense of the flow of the document. Obviously, there's no content populated in this, but I think it speaks to some of the challenges that we are having in trying to, and I mentioned this in the staff report, trying to respond to the demands of the immense amount of content that folks want included in this plan while also wanting to maintain readability and accessibility. And so Jennifer is going to talk a little bit about how we're trying to strike that balance and the flow. And so let me share my screen, and then I will pass it off to Jennifer. Sorry, trying to run the Zoom meeting on a single tablet while doing this is somewhat challenging. Give me one second here. All right, I think we should be good. Jennifer and Michael, I'll pass it off to you.
Great, thank you. Kristen, as always, wonderful job teeing that up. The approach to the CAP is basically balancing a lot of goals and objectives. So there is a large volume of data to support the CAP. The CAP covers action and adaptation, as well as the natural and working lands, has a really robust community engagement plan and engagement equity strategy. So there is a lot. However, we want people to read the plan. We want people to understand the plan. So where we have landed is that we want to have a main body of the CAP that is a focused summary of each CAP component. And then the appendices will be where the complete documentation for each of those key CAP components live. So we've basically tasked everyone to write the comprehensive chapter for, let's say, climate actions. That includes your inventories, your baseline, your forecast, your target, all of those calculation methodology. And then you take a step back and you go, how can I summarize this in graphics, in tables, in a concise manner that the community understands what they need to know to help implement and be a partner in this CAP. And then that will be the body of the CAP. So try to take, for example, 50 pages and condense it down to 5. The key components are, in addition to a handful of opening pieces, such as an opening letter, a CAP at a glance. This is the creative executive summary. The vision that you guys have all been talking about, that will be up front as well, and a reader's guide. We'll have an introduction as well. This is where we talk about the objectives, centering equity, background about how climate change affects Yolo County, some scientific and regulatory background, and how we all have to work together. And then moving on from that, after we get the introduction, is communication engagement plan and engagement equity strategy. We have the climate action. This again is where you'll have the greenhouse gas inventory and a lot of the math. Natural and working lands, carbon sequestration. This one is really more of like a background before we get into the strategy, measures, and actions. Same thing with climate adaptation. This is really a background evaluation of vulnerability and everything before we then kind of culminate these 3 pieces: action, natural working lands, and adaptation into the meat of the CAP. where do we need to move forward to meet this ambitious goal? And that is where the strategies, measures, and actions will live. After we identify that, we have funding and financing, essentially how we're going to implement that, how we're going to finance that, what's available to help the county fund it, and then implementation and monitoring. And that is where, identify the appropriate actors and responsible parties, the tool, the master tool for the county to implement it. How do we track and be adaptive when we manage it, and then report progress? So that's the main body of the report. And then the appendices will mirror these. Each of these will have a detailed appendix where people can go if they want to have those details. And that's kind of the large overview. We understand that it's not graphically rich, right? It's not a very visually impressive. It is essentially a working TOC. And if you kind of want to get a flavor for how it would look like, I would recommend kind of looking back at that strategy, measures, and actions framework we presented in October. That will kind of give you a more idea of how it will look. And this is more focused on the content.
Thank you, Jennifer, for this overview. I only have one question for you. So when you say climate action, including GHG emission inventories, I'm just concerned about the language here and wondering why we're not calling it climate survey, for example, because you indicated that it's essentially going to be a background evaluation. And then later on, we have strategies, measures, and action. Does my question make sense for everyone? Yes.
Yeah, so I can give you, there's actually a lot that goes under the climate action. The climate action is a broad term for this. Usually in a climate action plan versus a climate action adaptation plan, this would be the chapter where you would explain the purpose of an inventory, the previous inventories, which the county does have, and then the baseline inventories. And if you recall, we have community-wide inventory as well as municipal. And then we also have this narrative about consumption base. And then after, this is just kind of building of, you have to have an understanding of where you are to figure out where you need to go. So then the next steps is you're going to project in the future under a business as usual and an adjusted business as usual scenario. Identify those trend lines, right, to kind of get that that forecast appropriate. Then you're going to look at the targets, the county's goals, and then figure out the gap. So what is the greenhouse gas reduction that we need to get to carbon negative by 2030? So we could change it to more of it essentially is the inventory, projections, and target setting. That's another kind of way. It's just a longer way of saying it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it survey, but it definitely is more on the action side, the mitigation side, the more not as related to as for adaptation.
That makes sense. Thank you, Kristen.
And the communication, engagement, and equity section is where we're going to have summaries of all of the data, sort of as the precursor to jumping into the strategies and everything else. So the appendix itself will have a full community, plan that outlines the outreach to date, and then has it includes the surveys, includes the data, but then that body will include the overview summary of what that engagement looked like.
Thank you. And then my last question on the key components. Could you please refresh my memory when it comes to, the inventories? Because I know several commissioners had asked if that could include water consumption, just having a sense of, in the current practices, what is it that, has the most impact on that, on water conservation and so on. But I think that they were concerns about not having the capacity, being over budget, really not being able to include the data in there. What's the status on that?
I'll try to start with a background of what the inventories will include. And I will say for maybe a lot of other CAPs that you've seen, a lot of the strategies are organized by sector categories in the inventory. We try to, since this is a action adaptation CAP with a natural and working lands component, and we really wanted them all to synergize, we did try to have our strategies more be goal oriented, but a lot of them are still tied to a sector. So for the community inventory, we have on-road transportation, And then we have energy consumption. Those two are generally the largest sectors for community inventories. But for YOLO, we also have agriculture, which in the past was the third largest, water and wastewater, solid waste, and off-road equipment. So that is the majority, if not all, of the sectors in YOLO. So I think that we are covering it. Slightly different grouping than the previous inventory, which had water under energy. We decided to pull water out separately, but also consistent with the previous inventory, so people can see the previous ones and how it's evolved over time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying my, the point on that and refreshing my memory. Did you want to add something or did I interrupt you? Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, reaction? Commissioner White.
Thanks so much. And I have to say, every time I see this picture, I think of the sunflowers. It's so pretty. I think all your chapters are great. I would like to say that I've seen a lot of action plans lately, not necessarily climate action plans, that take kind of a backwards approach. And they start with the strategies, measures, and actions and hit you up front though with those first, the things that we need to do, and then use the later chapters to explain the process by which we got here. And the more I read things like that, the more I really like them, because I like seeing what we're going to do first and then being able to kind of flip back. And one of them that I just saw, and admittedly, I read a lot of transportation plans. After they finished the summary of actions, it said, how did we get here? Please see these sections to show you how we got here. And I just really like that. So consideration is flip this sucker upside down and try it the other way.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Jennifer?
Yeah, you know what? I love that too, because I feel like if I tell anyone 5 minutes, read the plan, what do I want them to know is what I want them to do. And that is the strategies, measures, and actions. And while there is so much that goes into it, I'm not sure we may get the story right if we start there. But what we can do, and I have seen this in other caps and I like it too, is like another page in the executive summary is here is what you're going to do. But because ours is so long, it may just be strategies and measures. I don't know if we'll get to the action level, but there could be a few pages in bold text in your face of here are the strategies and measures that we want you to do up front. And then you can kind of get more into the details later on. So that's on the table, I think.
Thank you, Jennifer. I would like to greet Commissioner Bennett, who just joined us. Before going back to our floor, do we have any online reactions, maybe from ex-officio members or county supervisor and staff?
I don't see any comments at this time, but
Nope.
please, folks, feel free to raise your hand. Any ex-officio members, supervisors?
No public comment? No. Vice Chair Kim, yes.
Yes, thank you for the update here. In regards to the funding and financing, I guess the question is how, I'm looking ahead a little bit on the table of contents. And is that the section where just all of the costs of all of the strategies, measures, and actions are going to just be like what the budget is for each one of those items? Or in strategies, measures, and actions, when you list out each strategy, will there also be, like a budget amount or a cost amount associated?
Right now, it's not 100% figured out. Our idea in the strategies, measures, and actions is to keep that a little bit bare. Usually you'd put like the $1, $2, or $3 sign and it includes the magnitude. That may just go into the master matrix instead. The funding and financing is supposed to provide a roadmap for the county. So it does have a different components with it. It will have kind of general costs to the county for each action or at the measure level. Sometimes it is grouped up to the measure level instead. So that will be in the cap. I'm not sure which section it may be in. It may just be in the master Excel for county implementation versus in the strategy, measures, and action chapter. I'm not sure if Michael, you had a thought on that.
No, we may have a summary of what the cost would be, like you say, a $1, $2, or $3 sign next in the graphics, but the details of how the CAP gets financed as far as each of the actions and where that money is coming from will be in that funding and financing chapter. And then even more details would be in the appendices.
And we're
Right.
planning. Oh, sorry. I was going to say this might be much clearer next month. We were planning on doing it this month and actually bumped it to next month. Next month, one of our topics of discussion, in addition to approving our strategy list, is having an update on the funding and financing appendix and chapter and what that will look like and how it'll be organized. And so I think we can get into a lot more detail of how that information is communicated once we can all see a draft of it next month.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Vice Chair Kim, any follow-up?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, Michael, just want to.
Supervisor Provenza's hand up.
Yes, Supervisor Provenza.
Thank you. Ed wanted to comment more generally. I think it's great that we have such extensive input from the community. I think that gives this plan force going forward and makes it much easier to advocate for a strong plan before the Board of Supervisors, and also gives us a very strong sense of how the public would like to get there. I would like to emphasize what I call keeping our eyes on the prize. And of course, the prize is less than zero carbon by 2030. And in making choices, we may not always be able to make the most popular choice to get there. And we have to consider what things cost. And so a lot of bang for the buck is still going to be important in terms of what should go in a plan and giving the Board of Supervisors some options to get there. That's going to be important going forward. And I'm not sure how you put that into an index or how you work that in, but those are important concepts to consider.
Thank you, Supervisor Provenza. And I want to second what you said. And when Michael mentioned that there might be some dollar signs to get a sense of what will be more expensive to implement. And I think that would be useful if we can add that to the to the index. So I think Commissioner Morgan also would like to address us.
Yes, thank you. I like the emphasis on making it usable and reader friendly. And I think that was an interesting but smart choice to do the details in the appendices. And I also like the reader's guide up front and sort of an executive summary. In thinking about, what are we trying to get folks to do that are reading it? I think one of the stronger chapters or portions is the consumption-based inventory, because we've talked about, this is going to be the personal choice section, and how do we get, as a reader, as an individual, what can you do to reduce your GHG emissions? So I'm wondering, as part of the appendice in that section, do we also make sort of like a quick one-page fact sheet or reader's guide that's specific to the consumption-based inventory aspect? Because that's going to be really, I think, an area that readers will be interested in and where they could have the biggest takeaway on personal actions. So interested in Dudek's thoughts on that.
Thank you, Michael.
I like that idea. I mean, kind of like a one-page snapshot infographic of like, what can you do today to get started? And especially the most important ones, because we do have a long list there, but the key ones that people can easily do. Yeah, that sounds good. Michael, what do you think?
Certainly, and a follow-up on the CAP is actually an entire educational program where there would be a guidebook on things that individuals can do to reduce their carbon footprint, everything from hanging their clothes out to dry when it's not raining, to to carpooling and managing their trips, things like that.
Thank you, Michael and Jennifer, and thank you, Sarah, for that feedback. Very important.
Thanks,
Yes.
MJ. I guess just one follow-up.
Yes.
And this is more just a thought or comment. But in moving forward, and I will defer to Dudek on their thoughts on best way to do this, but I guess there is going to be a challenge of how do we make this user-friendly and easy to take in and absorb and act on without making it an incredibly long document. And maybe what you're saying, you know, that follow-up portion of the project where we're going to do outreach and education, maybe that's where a lot of these one-pagers go. I don't know. I'm curious what people's thoughts are on that. Like, we have the document itself. It's good to have one-page fact sheets, but then it's just going to be absurdly long. So how do you balance making it consumable, but not too lengthy?
Before Dudek answers that, and thank you, Sarah, for asking, I want to ask Adelita if she has any thoughts on that.
Oh, at the moment, check back with me in a couple minutes. I wasn't ready
So,
for that one.
Adelita, I think my question to you is, you can see this as something that the TAC will take on, right? Something that your subcommittee will look into, maybe?
Yes, we'll look into that. And the reason I wasn't ready, because I was looking at this and she was talking and I was thinking about where a certain item would fit, would it fit under? And so I don't want to sidetrack because that's what I was,
Okay.
that was what I was thinking about, is where a certain item would fit. And I can go ahead and mention that. And one of the big standouts of some of the feedback I heard was folks navigating how to access certain resources to you know, just fill out applications to qualify for certain things. And there's so many different things out there that folks can qualify for, right? But navigating that whole, you know, online or whatever experience gets them to that access point, it can be difficult for, you know, several community members, because whether it's language barrier, whether it's, you know, just capacity because they're working and, you know, taking care of their family. We need to streamline that process. That was literally what I was, since you called on me. But that's one thing I wanted to mention here. It's something I heard a lot. And that is, again, being able to access opportunities to swap out, you know, an energy consumption type of appliance to, you know, a more, you know, efficient appliance, but really helping the community. And so when I was looking at this table of contents, I was like, where does that fit? Because that's a really important thing for folks to have that, because there's so many different languages here in our county, but these opportunities often are just hard to get to for certain communities.
Thanks, Adelita. Kristen will speak, and I think I saw a reaction from Tracy.
Yeah, so we have our electrification retrofit rebate outreach program early action project that is working to tackle that exact thing. We're having a follow-up with Valley Clean Energy. We're working. Yuri has been extremely hard at work to build out the portfolio of what this project looks like coming out of the workshops. We've heard weatherization, 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 weatherization. So we're planning to come back to the commission with an ARP funding request to use some of our ARP funds to expand Arrow to be able to provide weatherization kits to the community as part of this program, and then doing a full outreach and engagement program as part of that. So where it's currently reflected in the cap is expanding the electrification retrofit rebate outreach program. Arrow, mouthful, falls under several of the building electrification actions. And then we have sort of a whole other program area that Yuri is overseeing that builds that out. And so we're planning to do also more updates and have a conversation with the commission about that probably in March is what we're targeting. And then that program is captured under several of our measures and actions in the electrification and in the transportation sectors where incentives come into play.
Thank you, Kristen. We're
you.
going to need to
Thank
close
you.
soon
That
on
was
that,
great.
but yes. And then I want to, Chris, I think I saw you react. Did you want to share something maybe?
I will be just really, really quick. The first is I want to mention the words scope creep, Because every time we start talking about make one more thing for these people, pretty soon you've got another 9 workshops that you have to do. So there's that. But there's also a real benefit in the plan having some really short portable messages that folks like Cool Davis can pick up and they can take care of making these things as long as they can find the right messages in the plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Britton.
So I've been listening to this very good discussion. I'm really impressed by how hard the problem is, and I think everyone's pointed that out. That this joint readable and technically correct and complete is almost insoluble, and it's made worse by the number of different kinds of readers who are going to approach the reader's guide. And some of them are going to come in with very technical backgrounds out of the university. Some of them are going to come in just because they want to see how they can improve their lives. And some of them are going to come in from all over the place, right? And there's no one reader's guide that's going to work for all of those readers. So what do you do? And I just have this idea that modern web-based materials have options for that, where you could sort of branch. Now, this is impossible to do in a printed document, but in an electronic document, and eventually there will be this electronic resource that the county's going to host, there could be a way of saying, what kind of a reader are you at the opening? One kind of reader goes to one reader's guide, another kind of reader, and there's sort of a branching set of paths you can take where the reader gets a choice as to how they're going to approach the document, and they're going to get the content that they most want. I don't know if that's probably harder to do, but it could be more useful for more readers in the long run.
So
just a thought, and I don't know how it gets implemented.
Ken, your research background is strongly showing in that comment.
Yeah, well, sorry, I am what I am.
What I'm also hearing is that you're volunteering to help us find funding for that. Amazing.
Indeed, it's not easy.
Kristen?
Right?
Yeah.
I was going to say that our budget is really limited in what we're able to do. And so I would love to be able to do that. We don't have budget to do that. That being said, the Equity and Engagement Advisory Committee at our meeting last week talked about pulling out opportunities to highlight and for staff to create short videos around critical sections with staff talking through what things mean, with commission members talking through what things mean. That's something that we can do with our budget and time that doesn't pull down this DUTEC budget. So the Equity and Engagement Advisory Committee is going to be having a conversation in February around which components might be best served in video format so that staff can begin working in at the same timeline as the draft being developed to create scripts for videos that we could then have us record and reach out to commission members to be featured in these videos that could be then displayed on the homepage. If folks want to skip reading, they could watch a couple of key takeaways in video form.
Sounds great. And Kristen, before Vice Chair Kim speaks, I want you to notice that I did not bring up TikTok. Adding to your workload. Vice Chair Kim?
Well, I guess my sense is one of the most important readers of this document is the Board of Supervisors. And just to comment on what Supervisor Provenza said earlier, probably the most helpful way of this document being framed or this plan being framed is framed on what is financially viable and what is the financial critical path. And so in an ideal scenario of like how the budget and finance and funding could be structured, I could see it structured in 3 ways. So, one way is just all of the strategies or actions that have been recommended, they're just being a cost of like its implementation, 50% realization rate, 100% realization rate. And I realize with hundreds of strategies, we probably can't put a cost or a budget for each item, but maybe like the top 10% from each sector doing some kind of estimate based on baseline assumptions from other counties. Then the second option is, I imagine what DUTEC is already thinking is budgeting based upon the phases. Like this is phase 1, all of the most important priorities with the biggest bang for the buck, weighting, feasibility, viability, and all, and GHG, reduction impact, what have you, and then having phase 1 costs this much, and this is how much is currently fundable, and here is the gap. Phase 2 is going to cost this much. This is how much is financeable, and here's the gap, or phase 3. And then option 3 is actually what I think is most interesting, is just packaging it, not even based upon its GHG impact capabilities, but just packaging it on, here's all of the strategies that have no funding gap. That if you just say yes, if the supervisors say yes, this next Tuesday, we can just execute and like begin hitting these goals. Here's package 2. Like all they need to do is say yes, but there is a 50% funding gap. They're gonna have to hire grant writers and et cetera, et cetera.
Very important point. Thank you, Vice Chair Kim. Supervisor Provenza? You're muted still.
There, my mute button or unmute button disappeared for a minute. I'm sorry. I just wanted to add to, and I appreciate Andrew's remarks. I think that gives us a possible path forward. And if, the Board of Supervisors could pass this plan, and I'm speaking as a supervisor who will only be here until the end of this year, and then not take specific actions you'd like us to take. That's possible. Not saying that would happen, but if there's actions that you want the Board of Supervisors to take to reach the 2030 objective, those should be explicitly and simply spelled out so that it's very clear what they need to do, what we need to do, but really it kind of goes beyond my tenure. So I'm concerned that we be very clear.
Thank you, Supervisor Provenza. And again, Andrew, for your remark. I think that something that is standing out is that we have 2 different audiences. So we have the body and authority that's going to approve the cap and will have to make decisions when it comes to the funding, and we have to be realistic about that. And as Supervisor Provenza expressed, that might call from decisions that will be difficult to make and unpopular, but once the cap is adopted, we do need to make the document readable, the plan readable for the audience. We're asking participation when it comes to reaching our goals. So does everyone see the same thing I'm seeing here? Yes, no? Commissioner Ullman, I was gonna,
I have a comment. I kind of liked Andrew's third bucket. That seemed to make a lot of sense to me. I think we have to take a very good look at the audience for this. I think the board is certainly primary audience for it. We're going to ask people at all levels, whether they be ag or local government, and we list them all. Business as usual is going to have to shift. There are going to have to be attitudinal shifts here. We need to we need to tell this story in a way that looks at these strategies from the standpoint of, wait, I didn't know that this was possible. And we look at it in terms of degree of difficulty or financial impact, or what is its effectiveness in lowering carbon? So those are the 3 vectors. You could probably come up with others dimensionally. I think annotating these sections in those terms would be quite valuable. I think we need to take a look at doing a lot of little things. If enough people do them, wow, we can have quite an effect. As opposed to maybe we're doing some fewer higher priced big things, which the county can help us with. Okay, they can have quite an effect, or we do both. And we map our way forward depending on how we can navigate the degree of difficulty, the financial constraints. We have many other demands on our resources, but we have to agree that we want to do this. And it's going to position Yolo County in a leadership position across the state of California if we do it. And there are going to be a lot of questions. And this is why audience analysis is going to be quite important. Mm-hmm. It's going to range from outright denial to simply saying, oh, from a practical standpoint, this is a small county and it really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the questions. And we also are going to have some science involved in this. How are we going to absorb more carbon than we emit? Why is it structured the way it is? What about the cities? Those sorts of questions are going to come up. Those questions need to be answered quickly if we're going to get people engaged with this process. But as we move through it, and we have to take deeper dives into the facts that we begin to collect, and this is an ongoing process, so it's not fixed in time. But I think annotating something like this, and I think the dollar sign symbols or leafy green symbols or whatever have been used in other caps, those are valuable in terms of I can kind of get an instant snapshot. But in terms of what I need to do as an individual, I think that type of analysis, maybe I do lots of little things now. I do as many of those little things as I possibly can. But I think the big thing we need to get the threshold we need to get across to people is beginning to think of these goals all the time for whatever I might be doing, a business decision, or the Board of Supervisors has a proposal brought to them. What is the impact going to be vis-a-vis this cap and adaptation plan all the time? And so that if I go to the county website, I can see, wow, the board did the following. I can look at it and it's got a readout on what is the carbon impact, for example, or how far out is this? How long does it take? Is it within reach? Those kinds of questions. But I think it seems very daunting, but I think it can be done graphically, and it can be done according to how this is organized. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ullman. I want to, publicly remark that we've had quite a robust conversation on this. Lots of important and valuable input for the staff. I know we have a specific way of doing the summary of the meetings, and I want to make sure that you're able to break down the 3 points that Vice Chair Kim pointed out. It seems like it's going to be a cornerstone of how we're moving forward. We have one public comment, and then I think we're going to close on this item.
We have public comment from Christine Shoemaker.
Christine, thank you so much for joining us. You have 3 minutes and we're listening. Thank you.
So thank you. So this is Christine Shoemaker from Woodland, California. And I want to agree sort of broadly with what Chris White said about the order of the table of contents. I think it's important that the strategies, measures, and actions, however you present them, are one of the first things that people see, whether it's the Board of Supervisors, whether it's the person that lives across the street from me who uses the blower for his lawn 5 days a week for 4 hours each day, whatever. I think the most important thing is what is it that we have to do? What are our actions? And you talk about how it's going to play out broadly. That's what I think we would like people outside of Yolo County to see first as well. What is it that Yolo County is going to do? Because as scientists, we might do this in the order that it's listed here. And I know as a scientist, that's how I would do it. But I still think it's more important to sort of have the conclusion first. So a variety of people have said things along that line, but I think it was Commissioner White who brought that up initially. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you for your comment. And if it's okay, unless Dudek has something burning to say, but I think we're ready to close on this item. Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our time on agenda item number 7. We are moving on to number 8. Please refer to attachment H and I. And we are going over the implementation and monitoring plan. Michael, you have the floor.
Give me 1 second here to pull up Michael's slides.
That's from the, yeah. Oh, that's the staff report.
Quick question. So we don't see it on screen. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
it's coming.
It's coming.
Okay.
It's just slow.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Just a minute or less more.
Just feel like we should have a drum roll at this point.
All right, there you go.
Really
All yours,
simple.
Michael.
All right, and if you could advance it 2 slides, I think we will. Here we go. Perfect. So on implementation, we're going to rely really heavily on this CAP strategies, measures, and actions master tool. You've got a glimpse of that when you were making comments on each of the actions, measures, and strategies. It'll be an Excel-based tool that would have every action listed. At the measure level, it'll have emission factors that'll quantify the reductions based on the particular measure that it is. And also it will have the scoring on phasing as well as the responsible party. So that responsible party will be a particular county division. And within that, we're talking to the green team on actually identifying staff that would be responsible for tracking those measures when it comes time to that. So this CAP strategies, measures, actions, master tool being the appendices of the CAP itself. It'll serve as a tool in tracking achievement of those measures. And I'll get into monitoring in a moment. The responsible parties, like I said, would be identifying staff that would track those things within each of the divisions. Funding and financing actually has its own chapter, and I'll refer to Richard's slide, which comes after mine. On the monitoring side, there's three main components to that. One is the tracking tool, which I mentioned would be built off of this CAP strategies, measures and actions master tool that would track achievement of each of those strategies. And then there's adaptive management. What I mean by adaptive management is as we go through and you are tracking progress, some of the actions or measures may not be as fruitful as you'd like. You may have to change them, add to them, that kind of thing, in order to continue towards achieving the reduction targets. And that adaptive management would go along with monitoring and reporting. Something else that would be attached to this tracking tool would be the Yolo County Community Indicator Dashboard. So this would be a dashboard on the website for the county that would track progress of the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. And then there needs to be reporting, which is generally done annually. It would be a report to the Board of Supervisors on the progress that's being made and any problems that have been encountered that year and how those problems have been addressed. So with that, I'll take any questions. Like I say, funding and financing, we have another slide, and I think Richard will be presenting that. No.
Just a quick, nope, just a quick we cut that and moved it to next week, or next month when we bumped Richard's presentation. So that's not in folks' agenda packet. Sorry about that, Michael.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Britton.
Yeah, so this looks great, but again, it's one of those things that looks really, really hard to do in the future. And in particular, it seems like it's going to take a whole lot of staff time from the county to track all of the 200 individual items, or however many, maybe at strategy level, it'll be fewer, and add stuff to the sheets and send it back out. There's a lot of just plain handwork here. I want just to know how the county and you guys are thinking about how that is going to be done going forward at a practical level, because it's absolutely crucial. I love the fact you're thinking about it now, but there's a lot of money involved in making it happen. And I want to make sure that money is ready to go at the moment that this cap is signed off. How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can reference that with that tool I'm talking about, this master tool. We will be talking to the green team on how that actually gets presented to staff, but the way we envision it is through the county's computer network so that they have access to that tool. Using it once a week is actually the least time intensive. If you wait a month would be the longest you'd want to wait in updating it. If you wait a month, you're going to spend a half a day just playing with that tool. So staff time on a regular basis And these would be existing staff within each of the divisions. And obviously those 200 actions divided into something like 68 measures over 10 strategies. Those 200 actions are divided up between the appropriate county divisions. So.
Who is next?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Brin, for that question. I had similar thoughts and concerns. I guess because I've seen a lot of tools, but if the tools are not used, then nothing really happens. And so I think what you're saying, Michael, is that it's important to have a standard operating procedure on how the county interfaces with the tools, and hopefully, you know, all of the community partners, industry, beyond, and hopefully there's some elements of the tools where AI could be utilized or incorporated, so some of the tracking doesn't have to be as manual. But perhaps another way to ensure that these tools are useful and that the progress is useful is that we prioritize the strategies and actions that could just be measurable. Because I recall reading some of the 200 ideas, and some of them don't even seem possible to measure on any quantifiable way. So maybe accounting for that on which strategies do get prioritized so we can actually track and measure. And then hopefully also when you present the tools, also coming up with a strategy of how the tools are going to be used on a practical standpoint by the county as is now.
So I think Kristen wants to address that, and then I have a question. Kristen?
Yeah, and I really appreciate both of the comments from Ken and Andrew. And, you know, we as staff haven't had too much of a chance to talk with the DUDEC team about how this rolls out. And I'm going to be honest, the Yolo County Indicators Dashboard, I read it in DUDEC's proposal, and then I forgot about it, and I have not used it since. And I think that we're going to have, we are meeting with the green team on Wednesday. If I can look into the crystal ball, nobody is going to be willing to update a tool weekly. That's completely out of the question. We do a quarterly report on our strategic plan, and that is about as huge of a staff lift as I can imagine. And getting folks to do that, it's a lot. And so I think we need to continue talking with the DUDEC team and getting reads from the green team on what folks feel that dashboard is useful for, and if other departments do use it. I think getting that feedback from the green team is going to be really helpful to understand the utilization of that, how functional it is, how easy it is to access it. Then I think that this is obviously outside of the scope of DUDEC's contract and something that we can consider as a commission. There are tracking tools and dashboards that are a couple, you know, $10,000 to $20,000 a year that are plug and play and very easy to view and can do some of this tracking in a lot more live time in a simple visual way, where the dashboard is not a simple visual tool, that it is pretty bureaucratic in structure and design. And so I think if that's something if it really looks like this indicator dashboard, it's great to use county tools that exist. And I think we want to utilize existing tools as much as possible, so we're not recreating the wheel. But if that really ends up being clunky, we might want to come back. We have until the end of this year to allocate our remaining pot of ARP funds. And this is the type of thing that would really advance goals in a really helpful way. And we might consider putting some of our funding towards building out an additional tool if that's something we decide is necessary.
Thanks, Kristen, and everyone for the input. So at this point, I need to share something. I think I was one of the people who suggested a dashboard. And the reason why I suggested it is because I've seen it in effect in other cities, but I've seen something simpler than what's being communicated here. One of the purposes of a dashboard, one of the things it will do on the community is give a sense of healthy competition. And what I mean by that is when people have a visual of this is where the goal is at and this is where we're at, there is a sense of, you know, wanting to continue and just reaching that goal. So that was one of the ideas behind. And when it comes to that, if it's one of the uses that we want to prioritize, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are tools that already exist that other localities and cities are using very efficiently. So it's something we can, when the time comes, talk about. But I have a follow-up question, following what Commissioner Kim said. I was wondering, and Michael, this is a question for you and for Jennifer, has AI been a part of the conversation at all when it comes to data aggregation and sharing, you know, to kind of like make the workload a bit easier? Curious.
No, it has not to this point.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you. I was just curious, and also want to recognize that it's still, even though it's been in use and existence for several years now, when it comes to local governments, it's not something yet that has been, in terms of how a local government will be using it, I haven't heard much in the sense of like, you know, being able to enable it in a way that is safe and for everyone. Yes, Kristen.
We have Sarah Morgan and Sheila Allen both have their hands up as well online.
Thank you. So Sarah, I see your hand first, so you have the floor and then we'll listen to Sheila. Thanks, Sarah.
I just wanted to add two concerns over making sure it's not going to take too much staff time or funding that is not available to implement and monitor. In reading through the staff report, it also seems to me like some of the stuff is pretty technical that the county is being asked to do. So I think just ensuring that county staff and in their internal green team meetings and with DUDEC are working out that make sure they have the technical capacity to implement and monitor. For example, I saw a county will be responsible for updating GHG emissions inventory and tracking progress. And to me, that sounds very technical. Maybe it's easy, but just making sure that either systems are in place that make it easy or the internal technical capacity is there as well to actually be able to complete all these tasks. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Sarah. Sheila?
Supervisor Provenza had to leave for those of you who did not see that, but I am still here, Deputy Supervisor Sheila Allen, District 4. I love the idea of a dashboard. I think that it is a good tool for us to see which direction are we going, how fast are we going, and are we getting to where we want to be? So I personally am all in favor of seeing how we can figure this out. Back to the previous item that we were talking about, I think it will be important to have the Board of Supervisors and then also department heads to buy into the ongoing need for attention to this, because they're going to be having to assign someone to the tasks of keeping up the data on the dashboard and releasing them from other things that they might be doing. I just, for the fun of it, was looking over at the COVID dashboard, which used to be, you know, regularly updated and wonderful. Not so much anymore. So you might just want to think about that. And then the other thing that it can sometimes be difficult is what was mentioned earlier with your newsletter, is that sometimes the county website is not always the easiest tool to work with. So just thinking through that piece also.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor Allen. Any additional comment from either someone online or yes, Commissioner White?
I'm going to go back to one of my regular questions. What is the purpose of tracking? So tracking can be done to measure that you have finished something and you're looking backwards and kind of doing an analysis on things. Or tracking can also be that you're making progress towards something. And for many of these measures, the progress that we make, pass an ordinance, you know, support this thing, that's just like a yes or no answer. It doesn't mean that we actually made an impact. So like I said last time too, if we pass a measure that says all new houses will be 100% electric, that's awesome, but we don't issue very many building permits for houses in the county. So one of the things we work with our clients on is this thing called the theory of change framework. And that framework says if we want to get to this point at the end of the rainbow, what are some isolated things that we can measure that show we're going there? You know, that we're making it, feeds into a dashboard, but it's more about things that we are observing or know. Number of building permits, number of vehicle miles traveled, the amount of ridership on an annual basis on the bus, number of routes. We actually measure transit based upon number of miles traveled on transit routes rather than people on the buses. So I think there are things that we can do to measure progress without it having to be track each measure by its pound, gram,
Yes.
mile, whatever.
And I agree with you. And before we hear Commissioner Kim, I want to ask Kristen, I'm looking at the long range calendar and I'm wondering if you can identify a moment in time where maybe this is a conversation that we'll have, because I feel like we are in kind of like finding a solution mode. And tonight we were, listening to an update on that, but.
I think that it would be helpful to have a conversation about this in March as we reconsider. So we have to, as I mentioned, we have to identify where our ARP funding is going for the remaining funds. And so I think that this really wraps up in that conversation. If we're going to be building out any additional tools or support, that's where the funding would come from. And it directly ties to the intent and purpose of the ARP funds as well, to be able to support this ongoing implementation. So I think that March, where we will add an ARP funding discussion and a follow-up on implementation and monitoring.
Thank you, Kristen. Vice Chair Kim.
Yes, I just want to ditto what Commissioner White shared. I guess my concern wasn't about tracking every strategy and its progress and its efficacy or its implementation, because that would just seem too burdensome. I think what I was thinking is kind of what Chris White was saying, like these key performance indicators. And what are the key performance indicators? And it may be a package of strategy or actions that equate to one, KPI. And then what are those top 10 KPIs that are trackable? And especially within the realities of the county, operation now. And I think that would probably be the most helpful for us to see if we're making progress, right? So I agree with yourself. With Commissioner White, that's what I meant when I meant tracking.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're making note on that. I think that we are pretty much almost at the end of this agenda item. I want to again survey the room, see if maybe Robin or Mark, Adelita would like to share something. Micah, we have not forgotten about you. Thanks for joining us. Okay, thank you. Online? Yeah, Robin, Commissioner Data.
So I started reading Recoding America by Jennifer Palka, which is all about government and technology. And it is really clear that government at all levels tends to underinvest in very highly skilled technology people who are absolutely critical to make these systems work well. And so it is an expense that we need to face up to. If we're going to undertake a project like this, we need technologically trained people to do it well. So that is definitely an expense that we have to be serious about, I think.
Thank you. And again, I'm asking staff, as you're taking notes, when we get in March to that agenda item, let's make sure we go over that point as well, please. Thank you. Any additional comments, maybe public comment on this item?
We have public comment from Christine Shoemaker.
Hi, Christine, you have the floor. We're listening. You have 3 minutes.
I don't think I'm unmuted yet.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Uh-oh, I must have, hopefully I didn't say anything I shouldn't have said. Anyway, so this is Christine Shoemaker from Woodland, California. And so one of the things I think about from implementation is from the overall broader perspective versus just measuring our greenhouse gas reduction is that we don't lose the enthusiasm and the drive for getting this done. We might have the enthusiasm and the drive 6 months from now, a year from now, but we're going to need it 5 years from now. And I don't know how to do that, but part of it is a buy-in, not only from the staff, but all along from the supervisors. So it's part of what they do in their everyday lives. When they're out there talking to the constituents on the farm, whatever, that this comes up as well, because we will need that enthusiasm because as people know, it's not going to be easy. This is not going to be cheap. That's just kind of a broader thought.
Thank you, Christine. Point noted.
And
yes.
if you don't mind, in my experience on climate action plans, I have seen where there's been successful monitoring. And that successful monitoring is when you have several dedicated staff members that are diligent at that process. And as was just said, are enthusiastic about it. So if you have, I'll call them climate action champions, if you will, within the county, and the staff in each of the divisions in charge of the monitoring, it's successful. If it's an added burden to them, if they have that attitude, it tends to get put off until the annual report comes out, and then they're stuck with trying to figure out what happened over the last year. So we need to find those enthusiastic staff members that would be not just willing, but energized to do the monitoring.
Thank you. And of course, that takes us back to budget.
Yeah.
Yes, Vice Chair Kim.
So one final thing I would say about monitoring and tracking, just like to take a step back, is something that I heard some of the supervisors say before we even started this process was it was more a critique on the past climate action plan. There was this past climate action plan that had hundreds of different really good ideas and recommendations. And the supervisors were like, we have no idea what of that got done at all, right? And so the worst case scenario is we come up with all this effort and time and energy, and then the next climate action plan, they're back to ground zero. We have no idea if what worked, what didn't work, what people did or what people didn't do. And it's not saying that we should try to track everything, because that actually probably is not practical, but focusing on the most important milestones and being able to have the enthusiasm within staff or whatever resources needed to get that done, so that even if we just track 10%, but the most important 10%, so then we have more information going into the next climate action plan a decade from now.
Thank you. So I'm hearing a consensus toward the importance on really keeping having a dashboard, and what keeps coming up is also the importance of dedicated staff. And we know that we're already losing a member, Gretchen. We're already crying here over your departure. But so I guess this is something we need to keep in the back of our minds. Staff capacity, number of staff needed, dedication to the dashboard because of its future use, how that's going to inform future decisions. Thank you. We have like maybe a couple of minutes left on this. Any last reactions, comments before we close on this item?
I mean, I can just share from a staffing perspective. We have expressed to several board members and to the county executive's office that in order to implement the cap, we need at least 3 more additional full-time staff members. In addition to maintaining our current staff levels, having Civic Spark Fellows, we literally cannot do this with the current level of staffing. We're burning the candle at both ends and we can't keep it up. And so that's been really expressed over and over, that even if we make this cap reporting process as simple as possible, it is still just a massive lift to get anything done, in addition to all of the grants that we've just received that we're starting to implement, and in addition to actually starting implementation. So I think for us, the biggest ongoing ask over the next couple of months is staffing is the bottom line for doing all of this work.
So I'm gonna make use again of my freedom of speech privilege here in addressing my colleagues. This is a call from me, I'm not putting this on staff, but for advocacy. We do have the opportunity to engage with our supervisors and make a case for that. And something that I would like to highlight again is the fact that when it comes to the sustainability team in general and to sustainability and climate action as a department within the county, it uplifts almost every other services in the county, right? So whatever is invested there is meant also to have a positive repercussion on road maintenance and then all other services and so on. So anyways, just encouraging you to to advocate for that hiring. No, it's not going to be easy. Commissioner White.
I think that's also an equal challenge on us as we look at the strategies and actions is to be more discerning. There are lots of things that we would like to see happen, but we really need to be realistic in what a county with a relatively small staff can actually do. And I think it's a really good point. What you said is that it's not just the climate action staff. It's if we're going to electrify every facility, that's a huge impact on facility staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's all sharpen our own pencils and give DUDEC the recommendations that we think of what's actually doable and achievable.
Thank you, Chris.
And I think one other additional piece here. So staff have been tasked with developing a CAP that meets a net negative by 2030 goal. And part of the challenge in why we are ending up with a list this long is we have to do everything to meet this goal. And I think that this is where some of these conversations are going to get really tricky. You know, we're full steam ahead towards a plan that meets net negative by 2030. And the DUDEC team still, as you know, we've shared, still have to crunch the numbers on all of these individual actions. And that's why approving an initial list is really important to get us to start doing that math, or they've already started, but to continue that math. But we're going to have to make some really hard decisions about where we spend our time and what is feasible. So I really appreciate that comment. And we've got a lot of big conversations ahead of us in the next 2 months, especially.
I would like to say, I noticed you already took one early action because there are no more trash bags in the recycling garbage cans. Yes.
Victory.
One action we can mark off the list.
Here we go. So before we close on this item, I want to check again online if our ex-officio members would like to share something, or maybe Deputy Supervisor Allen once again. No, not at this time. Okay, so just for the record, it is 6:18. So we are almost at the end of our meeting. We have one more active conversation to have. So I think we can close this agenda item. Let's move on to agenda item number 9 and listen to commission member reports, comments, future agenda items. Who would like to start?
And if I could just go quickly, though, just thank you, Michael and Jennifer, so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. And please feel free to drop off the meeting if you'd like.
Echo that and apologize for not also expressing that. Thank you very much for the work you've done on this, and please come back again. So is there anyone who would like the floor? Any announcements, any good news, complaints? Adelita.
Yeah, so one thing that myself and Mark are part of the Woodland Sustainability Advisory Committee, and there we recently had the first, and I'm only announcing because I'm hoping some of y'all will make it next time, our first green drinks for the city of Woodland, and it was wonderful. And our city council member did attend, one of our city council members attended, and we have our next one April 28th. I will confirm that date, but I would love for that to be included in the next newsletter for April.
Could you share some background? So what is a green drink? It's a social.
Absolutely. Green Drinks is an international movement of environmental minded individuals that are just casually gathering and developing a network in their regions. I know that Davis has a green drink, Sacramento has a green drinks. And so we had the very first Woodland green drinks. Was it last week or the week? I don't know. It was the week before. Yeah, just recently. So it was I would call it a good turnout considering the very first. And so I'm excited that it will build momentum and again, bring it like-minded individuals, but also we're encouraging folks that are just interested and have never been involved, that want to like see what's going on locally, that we want to grow again, momentum, grow a movement here of folks that are interested of being involved, but don't know how to navigate these other spaces, right? So it's like, hey, just come, we'll, have a very loose, light agenda, if any, maybe a speaker, and then, there'll be drinks if you want to partake, and you don't have to, no pressure, right? But really, this networking experience could lead to, different opportunities down the line, open doors, and create, build bridges, basically. So we're excited to launch that here locally in Woodland, and it'll be a quarterly, I believe we had said. So again, the next one will be in April, and I will confirm the date. I think it's like right before Earth Day. I believe it was right before Earth Day that we had planned it. So kind of like trying to line up those efforts, right? So yeah, anybody is welcome to come. And of course, bring a friend. And we hope it's included in the next newsletter.
Let me add really quickly, since I attended this event, we were highly motivated. It was an outdoor event on a cold, dark winter night. And we had a great time, and it went longer than we had. It was really not, there was no real formal agenda. So we wanted to get people's comments and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
One of the overall goals is a realization that there are many people throughout the community, and Woodland is changing rapidly, who live and operate and think in silos. We wanted to kind of bridge those and start this interconnection process. So if everyone who attended the other day comes out and gets the word out to maybe a dozen other people, you see how exponentially it could grow. And I'm sure this happened back in the day with Cool Davis and other organizations around that we're aware of.
Absolutely.
So anyway, the motivation was there, the turnout was good, and the drinks were they were warming, but they were non-alcoholic.
Some people just got hot chocolate, and that was fine. Yeah. And by the way, it was Vicky Fernandez that attended, city council member, so former mayor of Woodland. And so we were happy to have her in attendance with us, welcoming everyone. But yeah, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be hot chocolate. It can be anything you want. Thank you, Mark, for those additional comments. Yeah.
Congratulations on that new initiative. Thank you for the humor.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure to have it in the newsletter.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Dattel.
Yeah, at 7 o'clock tonight, the League of Women Voters in Sacramento is hosting a forum on climate action for the mayoral candidates. Very important. So I'm going to drive home to Davis and tune into that.
So you're saying it's going to be streamlined?
It's if you go to their website, you can find your way to the link. So it's 7 to 8:30.
So yeah, and that's quite a big race happening next door. And also for people interested in the green drinks information, I'm guessing they can email the sustainability team. And
absolutely. Feel free to email any of us. It was organized by our outreach committee, which I'm a part of. And so feel free to email myself, Mark, anybody who is on that committee. It should be coming out at the next newsletter for the city of Woodland as well.
Wow.
Probably like just a little recap. I'm going to send some pictures. So.
Okay. I feel like the other communities in Yolo that also have green drinks should make sure to be vocal.
Absolutely.
About it and represent. Thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Bennett.
I just came on to the Yolo Sustainable Groundwater Agency as an alternate. And so I may not have all the technical details right on this, but I think that concept of it is really important, since one of the things we're talking about is groundwater management in this group. That the groundwater agency just approved conceptually the idea of a well permitting process. That there was an executive order that requires that the agencies verify that there won't be negative impact on the groundwater sustainability plans. It's pretty complicated. They've approved this idea, the final, how it's implemented and how it goes through but already exists at the county level, and there's a drought commission that will implement the final process. But the idea is finally there that they will be able to actually not verify some wells if in fact they won't meet the requirements. They are making a provision to work with people for a path to compliance, as they call it, but it's the first time I think we've had anything in the county that can safeguard groundwater in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, such important information. Thank you, Micah. Online, do we have any announcements or?
I do not see any hands or public comment from folks online.
And on this floor, anyone? No, future agenda items. I think we went through that. Before we adjourn, so Ken, I think you gave a presentation to the Winters Climate Action Commission.
Yeah, it's nothing very big. I couldn't actually get my slides up, which were, of course, NJ's slides that I was stealing. But no, it was well received by the commissioners of the city, and they were eager to hear what we were up to here and progress and the sort of expected sort of time points going forward. So, and there was a lot of excitement about things that the city could do together with the county. And in particular, the city commission has been talking a lot about bicycle transport because the city of Winters is not very bike friendly, as I'm sure some of you know. Anyone who's tried to ride a bike through there knows it. And we've been talking about doing local actions. And of course, it keeps coming up that wouldn't it be nice if we were better connected to other cities? And that would be helpful for county and regional transportation goals as well. So hopefully that will be something that the city and the county can work together on to improve bike networks through the area. So we're excited about it.
And county staff, I had a meeting with Jeremy, the city's new city manager, week before last, and we talked about getting city involved in our ZEV action plan, the regional resilience plan as our grant application as well. And so really excited about new staff coming into the city of Winters and looking to build those partnerships. So we'll be talking regularly moving forward.
Thank you.
And Carla Fresquez has her hand up as well.
Yes, Carla.
Hi there. I just wanted to share one little update. Actually, it's quite a big update because it's been quite a big lift and taken a long time to do it. The UC Davis has recently, at the end of last year, shared with our chancellor our fossil fuel free pathway plan. It's something that we are preparing for public dissemination, but it is complete. And the plan represents a pathway and a series of solutions and potential solutions for achievement of 95% fossil fuel reduction by 2040. This plan is part of a series of plans that each of the UC campuses are responsible for developing to identify and describe their decarbonization pathways. And this is one component of that plan for UC Davis. And so I just wanted to share that with you all as an integral part of the county, something we're proud of. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you all in a more formal capacity once it's out for publication.
Oh, thank you. You answered my question. I was going to ask you if information is available online. This is huge. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to just add, I saw the draft. It's phenomenal. You guys should be proud of the work you did on it. It's really an amazing body of work and a good piece of writing and clear. It's a model how those things can be written. Beautiful.
Thank you, Ken. Commissioner Kim.
Yes, thank you for that. I wanted to suggest maybe a future agenda item where if Carla could present a little bit more when it is available and it's ready to be presented to the commission at large. I think that sounds very fascinating. If UC Davis UCs are saying 2040 in their strategy, I'm sure there's lots to learn from that as well. And what is that just for the main campuses or also like extension campuses like the Aggie Square and Medical Center?
Great question. It's for all of our campuses. So we describe that broadly. We're quite a diffuse campus, but it's for both our Sacramento Health Campus and our Davis campuses as well as our Tulare County, Bodega Bay. So it's a comprehensive plan, all of our campuses.
Thank you, Carla. And is this something you'll be open to doing? I mean,
Oh, yeah,
just
absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. We're basically preparing right now, preparing some communications and redoing our website, including some more information about our engagement and public comment period and how that went. So yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Definitely.
thank you. Wow. So since we're high on good news anymore, okay, I think we have a staff member from Cool Davis. Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember Cool Davis having a green economy, green budgeting workshop. Has that happened already, or is that happening in the future?
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Brandon from Cool Davis. We had a green finances webinar earlier, a few months ago, and we're having a focus on investing on the 21st of February. So log in if you want to learn about some about that.
Thank you. And don't go anywhere. The past webinars, are they available still for people to check or not?
Yes, we have all of our archives of all of our work on YouTube. You can
Okay.
find it there.
Thank you. I was asking that because in December, you also had an emergency preparedness, disaster preparedness for community members. So that's something that can be of interest to people. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, just the YouTube channel is Live Cool Davis. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So I don't see any additional reactions. I don't have announcements, except again to thank you all for the work you're doing. Thank you to the members of the public who emailed, continue to email us on various topics. And thank you for county staff also for joining us. Sustainability team, you're amazing. Thanks for all you're doing. So it is 6:32. We're going to mention the long range calendar attachment. Jay, that's agenda item number 10. We've already talked about it earlier in the meeting. Just double checking, anyone has a burning comment? You all seem pretty good, okay. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 10. Excellent news. It is 6:33. We are over by 3 minutes, but that's okay. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good end of the week and see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Oh my, oh my.
Bye.
I'm gonna start saying.